been reminded over these last days of the suggestion that we have to know who we are, and we have to know what we do. So let's dive a little deeper and see what we can find. Mullah Nasruddin, after spending a hard day at the coffee shop, sipping coffee, sharing gossip and anecdotes and the occasional mystical truth with his friends, was on his way home in the evening when suddenly he felt thirsty. So he stopped at a nearby well, and just as he was lowering the bucket into the well, he looked down, and there was the moon. "Oh," he said, "what happened to you? What are you doing down there? Let me help you. I'll lower down this bucket for you." But as the mullah was lowering the bucket, the rope of the bucket caught on a rock in the side of the well, and he had to give it a good yank, and he fell flat on his back and looked up. There was the moon. "Oh," he said, "there you are. I'm so glad I came along at the right time and could be of help." He got up jauntily and went off on his way. And then there was a monk who had been in the monastery for 3 decades. And during that time, he'd learned the precepts, practiced the sutras. But after that time, it was time for him to leave the monastery to spread the Dharma to the world. So leaving the monastery gate behind, heading off down the road, when suddenly he saw a being lying in the ditch. When he came close, he found that this was a leprous being, the extremities oozing pus. So here was his chance to practice the bodhicitta, the compassion, after all of these years. So he leant down and put the being's head in his lap. This being looked up at the monk out of his suppurating, sightless eye sockets and said, "Who is it who comes between my Lord and I? Even without my body, I have my devotion to him." The monk lowered the head to the ground, stood up, stripped off his monk's clothing, and walked naked down the road. Then there's the story of the great devotee, close devotee of the Buddha, Sariputra. And Sariputra was heading off on a pilgrimage to spread the Dharma to the world. And he went to the Buddha, who gave him his blessings, wishing him health and success on his journey. After Sariputra had left, another of the monks came to the Buddha and complained that he had asked of Sariputra where he was going, and Sariputra had not only ignored his question, but knocked him roughly to the ground. The Buddha said, "Oh, well, Sariputra would not have gotten too far down the road." So he called a novice to him, asking the novice to go to find Sariputra and bring him back. And the Buddha instructed all of the monks that they were to gather in the Buddha hall that evening. Sariputra returned to the Sangha, and that evening, when all of the monks were gathered, Sariputra sat at the Buddha's feet, and the Buddha said to him, "You have been accused of ignoring the question of a monk and roughly knocking him to the ground. What do you have to say?" Sariputra stood up, bringing his hands together to the Buddha and to the group of monks who were gathered. He said, "If a monk has not contemplated the body in the body, or have awareness of what that body does, perhaps he would ignore the question of another and knock them to the ground." Lord Buddha, 14 years ago, you gave a lesson to Rahula when he was 18 years old, and you said to him, "We must become like the earth, the water, fire, and the air." And although this teaching was for Rahula, I have practiced what you said for 14 years. I have become like the earth that is expansive, that takes in anything without judgment, the fragrant leaves of the trees, the nectar of fruit, the excrement, the spittle, the vomit, without discrimination, taking all unto itself. I have become like the earth. If a monk does not contemplate the body in the body and have awareness of what the body does, then that monk could ignore the question and knock another down. Lord Buddha, I have become like the water which takes in all unto itself, the sweetness, the bitterness, the poison, washes and purifies, cleanses, without judgment. I have become like the water. If a monk does not contemplate the body in the body and know the workings of what the body does, then he may insult another and knock them down. Great Master, I have become like fire. Fire burns the good and the bad. the pure and the rotten, making no judgment. It consumes all. I have become like fire. If a monk does not contemplate the body in the body and know the workings of the body, it may insult another and knock them down. Great Master, I have become like the air. The air takes all unto itself without judgment, also cleanses and purifies. I have become like the air. If a monk does not contemplate the body in the body and know and is aware of the workings of the body, it may ignore a question and knock another down. This is not my way. Lord Buddha, I am like an outcast, low-caste beggar child holding out my begging bowl, accepting without questioning or judgment what is placed in it, ingesting it. Lord Buddha, if a monk does not contemplate the body in the body and is aware of what the body does, then that monk may ignore the question of another and knock that body down. This is not my way. Sariputra was about to continue when suddenly the monk who had accused him jumped up and, taking the end of his saffron robe, wrapped it round his tear-filled eyes and said, Lord Buddha, I have erred and wrongly accused the Venerable Sariputra. I have broken the precepts. I seek repentance and will follow. Putting these three together, what is it that arises for us in our need to know who we are and to know what we do? What is it that arises for us out of the combining of these three anecdotal stories?
By having to ask a question or having to do something, you are proclaiming that you've got absolutely no idea what you're on about.
No, I don't.
What if you don't follow the